what is it you think you do best?
You know what? I think I would love to have been. I would love to have been like Sting, and been a teacher. I really would have liked to have done that. What really sort of gets me off is to be able to introduce people to new things. I love the feeling of introducing a new subject or something, especially to younger people, that maybe excites them and gets them going on something and it influences them to do something, you know, opening up some kind of world. I love taking people to art galleries and really corny things like that. I love going to museums with them as well. And it's a joy that I've always had with my son especially. It's been just terrific to be able to do that. Take him to the theatre 1 week maybe, then take him to a dance club or a rock show and then an art museum and all these different things. And it's just great to see how somebody else takes these same influences and puts them together their own way. Because I remember when people did that for me, I always felt it was a gift when anybody took me anywhere and or showed me a new way of doing things. I always felt that that was the greatest gift that they could give to me, and I love doing that back.
You're listening to the UnCommonCore Podcast with your host Thomas Howell. Today's episode, Art.
I am here on Sunday in front of the Museum of Modern Art, meeting my friend Yi, who I see over here. Hello. Hi. Here. I have the microphone. What?
What?
No, say something. I wanted you to talk into it. Just act naturally. What's your friend's name? What's your name?
You can call me Ray.
Ray? Okay, and where are you from?
China.
From China? What city in China?
Nanchang.
Nanchang? Where's she from? Where are you from? Just tell everybody where you're from.
Beijing.
Beijing. All right, let's go to the Gauguin. Let's go look at the Gauguin thing.
You look like weird.
Well, thank you. Let's start over here. Anyway, just look around. If you have any questions.
So where's
What?
Gauguin from?
Where's Gauguin from? He's French. Yeah, he's from France.
So do you like him?
Gauguin?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of Gauguin. No, not really. He is popular. People like he came up with this sort of escapist sort of look.
I don't understand why he painting like this style. Weird.
Well, you're used to something that's more maybe realistic or representational. He's not showing you what's there. He's showing you the experience of it that he wants, or the experience maybe that he would like to share with you.
He just imagined all of the stuff.
What happened was that artists were looking for the kind of landscape that suited the pictures they wanted to
At
do.
that time, society was changing a lot, and people just wanted to get away. So the idea of the simpler people and the simpler life was appealing to them. And he had this, went from being like a banker, a very stiff job, to traveling all around the world and experiencing all these different things. And people found that appealing. You know what I mean?
It wasn't a question of detaching colour from nature. Rather, the aim was to find in nature a special kind of chromatic intensity, colour that spoke directly to the psyche and could be concentrated on a canvas.
And so his style was able to convey the fantasy or the idea. It's not so much the technique, I don't think. I mean, even though he was
The man
good
who did most to bring in the idea of independent, symbolic colour and free its role in art was a brilliant histrionic fugitive named Paul Gauguin. Now, everybody knows something about him. He was the archetypal dropout, the man who gave up banking to paint, who went half crazy with his mad friend Van Gogh trying to set up an artist commune in the Yellow House at Arles, and who left his life for the embraces of the Tahitians.
What do you think? You don't like it? You don't like any? Do you like any of this stuff?
No, I don't like this.
What provoked his famous escape was the great Paris exposition.
What about you? Do you like any of it?
He cannot understand everything, I guess.
He can answer for himself.
Okay.
That's nice of you to say that to him. Well, he doesn't understand everything. He doesn't understand. Don't ask him. What do you think of it?
way he painted is not like the European.
Well, he is European, but this is a woodcut right here.
The idea of the noble savage living in a blissful state of virtue in the fruitful bosom of nature was one of the great fantasies of European thought, and Tahiti was the proof that this creature existed. So the myth of Tahiti blossomed very quickly. Moreover, Paradise was a French colony. So in 1891, Gauguin set off, cheered on by his friends and admirers, who nevertheless wisely stayed in Paris. Instead of paradise, he found a trading port. Instead of noble savages, prostitutes. A culture wrecked by Bibles and booze, its rituals dead, its memory lost, its population down from 40,000 in Captain Cook's time to 6,000 in Gauguin's. So the paradise Gauguin painted was deceptive, even pessimistic, a lost Eden full of cultural ghosts, and his Tahitians were like survivors of a golden age that they could not remember.
Those nymphs, I want to perpetuate with their golden skin.
See? Yeah, two girls. Two half-naked girls. That doesn't necessarily mean they're lesbian just because they're naked. This is one of the reasons my girlfriend liked these paintings.
He believed that colour could act almost like words, that it held an exact counterpart for every emotion and every nuance of feeling. Colour became the interpreter between the mind and the world. It was a language made up of patches on a flat surface. Its job was to express rather than to describe.
Face is so ugly.
What?
His face is so ugly.
Why is that face so ugly?
Yeah. This is my question.
Well, I don't think she actually looked like that. I wouldn't, they're trying to be expressive. Well, I don't know what this one is, but sometimes they're ugly because they're trying to express something or exaggerate something. Careful, the guy will come and beat you up if you stand inside that tape. But this may also be this statue that we're looking at may also be something that inspired him, because when he traveled all around the world, he got to see art from different cultures, different styles, different techniques, different ways of expressing things, and so he put that into his paintings. And that's one of the things that, in modern art, people try to do. They try to get less away from this cultural timeline and try to introduce other ideas, other ways of doing things, and get away from such representational stuff, All right, let's head over here and head out. All right. A couple other new girls laying down. Pictures of girls laying down. See, here you're looking at some things. Now, so I don't think he did that. This is just, honestly, people are not supposed to take pictures. See the guys yelling at him for taking pictures? Okay, see, I could read this. What it says is the three sculptures, I don't know what they call that, vitrine, whatever it is, in this case that we're looking at, are examples of what Gauguin called tili, small cylinders carved from tree trunks, usually representing deities from the Tahitian pantheon. Although they bear little resemblance to the religious object known by the name. Okay, whatever. So so this is what inspired him, but it's not so much the mythology that he was trying to latch on to. It was the style, and in the style were trying to express certain things, and by making a mutual connection with those things, he picked up a lot of the styles. That's why you see the nose and the mouth and see the eyes. Mm-hmm. You see that. You see Picasso and you see other people too picking up these kind of what they call native styles in their artwork. It's a new way of expressing things.
Okay.
All right, let's go out. What?
Why he always painting the woman face? Looks like I don't know.
Why do they always paint the women's faces? Strange?
Yeah, strange.
Yeah, well, most of the artists painting women's faces, because the women's faces represented, I guess they just, I don't know why there's not a lot of paintings of men's faces, because I guess the artists don't want to sit down and paint a face of a man's face. But they picked up the style and they put it on the model, the woman, I guess. And that's an interesting question. You have to ask someone who knows more about it than me why women's faces all the time. But I think women played a certain role in life, and they represented something, at least to those artists.
Because all the artists are men?
No, they're not all men, but most of them were. I think most of the famous artists are men,
Yeah, so they like painting woman's face.
Painting a picture of a woman's face, But if you go back farther...
It's strange. The face looks very strange.
Well, like I said, they look like that because like this guy picked up the ideas from the way you saw in those carvings. Those weren't his; those were the native carvings. You know what I mean? And so they looked a little bit strange because that's the way they portrayed them. So they wanted to show something more than what had been shown before. They had other ideas about what was important in life, and they wanted to express that. Come here. Do you know who this guy is? That's Andy Warhol.
Warhol loved the sameness, an infinite series of perfectly standardized products.
Andy Warhol did more than any other artist to turn the art world into the art business. Although his late work descended into feeble, repetitious kitsch, the main message of his career came through very loud and very clear. And it was that the primary model of art was fashion.
Famous for his Campbell soup, silkscreen shoes. Maybe they're here, I don't know. I'm not looking at this right now. These are other famous people that no one remembers anymore.
From television, film and photography, we receive a stream of images every day. There is no way of paying equal attention to all that surplus, so we skim. The image we remember is the one that most resembles a sign. Simple, clear, repetitious. We absorb rather than inspect. Indifference becomes our second skin. Everything the camera gives us is slightly interesting. Not for long, just for now. The human extension of the glut of images is celebrity, which replaces the Renaissance idea of fame. The artist who understood this best and became best known for understanding it was Andy Warhol. Warhol is nearly as famous as Picasso, at least on the level of chit-chat and gossip. But Picasso was famous for his energy and masculinity, Warhol for his passivity and sexlessness. He became a famous artist by silently proclaiming that art can't change life, whereas others once did by loudly giving the impression that it could.
But if you take a photography class, or a painting class or an art class, I don't know if they have photography classes, but they'll have a real live nude person there for you to sculpt and stuff. Yeah. Do they do that in China? Do they do that in China? Do they have like a live nude? I think they do, don't they? Do you know?
Yes.
Maybe. You're guessing. Yeah. Well, when I was in Thailand, teaching the art students there, they had a teacher that would actually pose in the nude, and they felt a little uncomfortable because it was their teacher that they were. I thought that would be weird, wouldn't it? Yeah. So yeah.
His paintings, tremendously stylish in their rough silk screening, mimic the dissociation of gaze and empathy induced by the mass media. The banal punch of tabloid newsprint, the visual jabber and the bright sleazy colours of TV, the sense of glut and anesthesia caused by both. Two Elvises are better than one, and one Marilyn, patched like a gaudy stamp on a ground of gold leaf, could become a sly and grotesque parody of the Virgin Mary fixations of Warhol's own Catholic childhood, of the pretentious enlargement of media stars by a secular culture, and of the similarities between both.
Take a look at Oh, check out the helicopter. Those are one of those really cool old helicopters they used to have. I guess you could probably still get them. It's one of those with the big news gathering helicopter from the 60s. It's got the big bulb on it. Great looking. That's industrial design. See, that's like art. That's why it's here in the Museum of Modern Art, right? Anyway, it's a great design. No, you can't take rides on them. You can't take rides on it.
Why?
Well, it would be awkward flying a helicopter around inside the museum, you know. You might crash. You could only go up and down and like through a couple of hallways. All right, come on, let's go to the...
Yeah.
All right. It's cool though, huh? Yeah. They have one of those, I think, in the museum in LA as well. I don't see any burqas around here. How come there's no burqas?
What did you say?
How come there's no girls in burqas here?
Why?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't know. I don't know why. They're not interested in modern art? Let's go in this room. Did we go in here? Oh, we went in there already. All right. Getting lost.
I told you you have bad memory.
When did you say that?
You?
What? All right. So Jasper John's and his little teddy bear. Here we go. Maybe this one. Did we go in this one? We went in that one. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go down there. Where was the one about the women? Here, look. See? All right. It's okay. There's a lot of it. See, that's why I don't like the way this is laid out. You've been missing a big section of it. What?
I said my teacher is so cute.
I mean, kind of like a dumb idiot dog.
What did you say?
Nothing. Oh, there's John Cage. John, let's go in the John Cage room. Yeah, let's do in the John Cage room. Come on. It's audio. It's 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Now you gotta be quiet in here. There will never be silence. You can buy this on iTunes, by the way. John Cage is 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Here, let's go in there and experience it live. Okay, come on. It sounds amazing. So, the mystery. Do you know what 4 minutes and 33 seconds actually is? All right, it's silence. So John Cage once performed it with an orchestra. An orchestra once performed. I mean, he wasn't there, but anyway, an orchestra once performed it, and the guy gets up in front. You can find it on YouTube. The guy gets up in front of a full orchestra, and he just lays his little thing down, and it's 4 minutes and 33 seconds of silence. Absolutely nothing. You know, and there's an audience there, and then they clap at the end. That's available on iTunes. I don't know how you would know it's that actual performance. I mean, maybe it's just some other silence somewhere. But anyway, oh, this is Noman. I like this guy better. This is the kind of stuff I like. This is more expressionistic. There's no symbolism at all. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I like. Not, what? Well, it's just because you don't see it. What? There's a line there. It's a little line. There's a line. No, when you get into the expressionist stuff, I like that. I like the abstract expressionist stuff. Jackson Pollock, things like that. But you haven't seen those yet, so. He's got a couple good paintings that are better than that. What? Yeah. You have to look at it. You have to look at it for a while. Oh my gosh, now we're going into another end. What happened? Oh, now we're downstairs. I don't remember going down the staircase. How did we get down here?
Second floor.
How did we get down here? I don't remember going downstairs. We gotta go back out that way. Because we're missing things.
Abstract painting often has to do with time, with depicting a place where time no longer applies, closer perhaps to music. It represents a search for harmony and grace, a place of timelessness and, to use a word which dropped out of fashion some time back, of beauty.
What do you think of this one?
I can say so.
So what is it? You mean when you say you understand it, you mean you look at the image and you know what those things are. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point in the other modern art is it gets more abstract. You don't want to have anything that you can point to and identify.
Yeah.
Now, we haven't come across any of those pictures yet, except for that one over there, but that we just looked at. It was all white. But yeah, it's supposed to evoke meanings in it. But I like these little cat boys.
It's not a cat.
Oh, the little horn boy. What is it? Lizard boy?
Yeah, it's boy.
Yes. How come they don't have a lizard boy in movies? But yeah, let's keep going. It's Van Gogh. Van Gogh and Gauguin were contemporaries.
I mean, you know the.
Well, I guess you could take pictures. Everybody is doing it. He doesn't seem to mind. Do you want to stand next to the Van Gogh? And, maybe you should put like a bandage on your ear or something. I wonder if they have the screen here. You can stand next to it and like go, There you go, Starry Night. 1889. You like that? Look at that. This is where most people start getting interested in art and start understanding what it's all about, is through Vincent Van Gogh. You said earlier you didn't like it, but that's his stuff. Do you like it now?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, a lot of this stuff, you have to see it in person. You said you did like it, right?
I didn't say I did like. I said almost everyone doesn't understand.
Understand it. Well, do you like it?
Yes, I like.
Well, then you understand it on the human level.
What's the point?
The very dark, there's a woman playing a instrument to her mouth, and then if you look deep into the forest, you could also see other animals peeking out, like a rhino and a snake and a little monkey. And oh, there's Waldo. What do you think of this one? This lady reclining in the dark savannah of, African night under a moon. What is that lion gonna do? She's lying next to a lion. That's Rousseau, French. Do you guys like these? What do you think of this floor? Yeah. This is almost the more famous stuff. It's a permanent collection of Museum of Modern Art, of MOMA. What?
So that's why it's famous. So that's why famous.
Yeah, it's a permanent collection here. Marcel Duchamp. It's another stool ones, this is the real stool. The ones upstairs, those are just, low-end stools. This is the real thing with the bicycle tire affixed to the top. This is one of my favorite artists, Kandinsky. I used to have a bunch of prints. Kandinsky prints, yeah. Not so busy as this. Mine were later. This is 1914. But see, just right when we get into the turn of the century, it starts to change from what we saw earlier to this kind of stuff. And Van Gogh. There's a representation of women. The eyes and the lips.
What's the point?
Well, see, stuff like this is not a de Kooning, I don't think. But actually there was a point to some of the de Koonings and some of the over glamorization of women, because they were making a point about how women are dolled up and dressed up a lot in society, and asking questions as to why and what's going on here. So there were some things that did have points like that. A lot of times in the de Kooning's women, it did draw attention to certain things that were going on in society and in culture, which is grotesque, what he was doing with the paintings or what we as a culture were doing. So there were some things like that. That's some people peeling an apple and smoking cigarettes, or a video of some people peeling apples and smoking cigarettes. Maybe they're oranges. Jesus. Gotta get my apples and oranges straight. Yeah, that's the point in the other modern art, as it gets more abstract. You don't want to have anything that you can point to and identify. Yeah. We haven't come across any of those pictures yet, except for that one over there, but that we just looked at, it was all white. But it's supposed to evoke meanings in it. But I like these little cat boys.
It's not a cat.
Well, the little horn boy. What is it? Lizard boy?
Yeah, it's boy.
Yes. How come they don't have a lizard boy in movies?
Today, newness in art doesn't seem to matter so much because it's expected, it's museum policy, it's routine. Maybe the shock of the news simply doesn't matter anymore. But in that case, it's become all the more important to decide for yourself whether a work of art is just a little feat of novelty or whether it actually has something fresh and vital to say. Just over 100 years ago, the world was amazed by the sight of the Eiffel Tower peering strangely above the skyline of Paris. Wherever you went in the city, you couldn't escape the sight of the tower. It was visible from everywhere. This was the master image of the age, the structure that seemed to express the energy, the confidence, and the self-belief that art could offer. And the important thing was that it had a mass audience. Millions of people, residents and visitors, were touched by the feeling of a new age that the tower made real. "80 years later, when the Twin Towers went up in the 1970s New York, people didn't think the same way about that. 40,000 square feet of office space confirmed that business was good, and that Lower Manhattan was steadily usurping the square mile in London as the centre of the world's financial markets. It said something else too, but which we took for granted. In their gross confidence, the Twin Towers were an emblem of a society content with itself and with the world, and seemingly unassailable. So nothing on September 10th, 2001 could have prepared us for those hijacked planes heading toward the World Trade Center on the following morning and the shock of its collapse. I saw it from the window of my loft. The great unfurling disintegration, the toppling, the unbelievable quality of catastrophe. Replayed 1,000,000 times, the fall of the towers has become one of the iconic images of the 20th century. To anyone with a biblical background, it also suggests the fall of the Tower of Babel. I guess we're all apt to generalize, but it's not hard to see the erection of the Eiffel Tower as the beginning of a modern age, and the death of the Twin Towers as its terrible end. The fall of the World Trade Center immediately entered that small stock of images by which we remember the horror and cruelty and violence of the 20th century. The atomic bomb, the death camps at the end of the Second World War, the assassination of
Recognize
JFK.
what that is behind all the color, right?
Yes.
What is it?
It's like
It's
house, a little house.
No, yeah, it looks like a little house, right? But you know what it is, right?
Yeah, I know Chinese. I know if it's Chinese, I don't know. I know.
Do you
how
live
to
in those houses
No,
there
there's
in
not.
China?
No.
Family of like 2 families?
This is a tree house.
No, it's not a tree house. That's a guard post. Yeah, they put those like around the Berlin Wall to make sure nobody got over. So the soldier would be inside, exactly. Yeah.
这哨房，我知道啊，我在中文会说。Yeah, I know Chinese name, but I know English.
What's the Chinese name?
哨塔。Don't
What?
pretend.
What?
Don't pretend you understand Chinese.
No, I don't understand Chinese.
You
I
don't.
just know I know what it sounds like, and so.
You don't understand Chinese.
No, I don't. But I just want to know what the word was.
Okay.
Yeah, why not? I'm never going to repeat guard post when I go to China. It's not going to come in very handy, you know. At least I hope not. What?
I mean, everything is the same. House.
Guard post.
Post.
Yeah. Although you probably could live in them.
I can. Because I don't know how to climb this tree. They tell me, what's this? Do you think, what's this? It's hard? What's the point? The point is, in the war. 战争怎么说 war? To make
Yeah, you don't want to. Like I said, you know, if you were walking around with someone that gave lectures about every little thing here, it'd be very boring very quickly.
As recently as 1937, after all, Picasso had been able to paint the most powerful invective against violence in modern art, Guernica.
If you're interested in something, you explore it more deeply. But, you know, I don't know the answer to all these, details.
During the Spanish Civil War by German aircraft at the request of the Spanish nationalist commander, General Emilio Mola. Guernica may not have been the last great history painting, but it was surely the last modern painting of major importance that took its subject from politics with the intention of changing the way that large numbers of people thought and felt about power. A reproduction of it was given to the United Nations and hung in its foyer in New York to remind everyone of the horrors of war. But we're a long way from the moral shock of that now. In January 2003, when Colin Powell came to the United Nations to argue the case for war in Iraq, Guernica was discreetly covered with a blue curtain.
Look at that monkey. Oh, good. I was getting worried that I would go into a museum and not see a monkey. I like that.
You like that?
Yeah.
What's this?
I don't like the stuff that has that's representational. I like the abstract stuff.
It's very weird stuff.
I'll take that as a compliment. Look, there's a Nazi swastika right below the Benihana chef guy. Yeah. Here, let's go in here. This looks like fun. Oh, pictures.
Whatever it is, it's about making an immediate impact, about fast, gettable and sellable images. Shit, man, this is what they used to do in Notting Hill Gate in 1964. Trouble is, if you live long enough and you're in a culture of revivals, in the end nothing is new. It's as though Western art began with Andy Warhol.
Yeah, what do you think of some of these little... reminds me of some parties I used to go to. Casey's house. May he rest in peace. Maybe not so much at least.
We finish where modernism began, at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, and perhaps the etiquette now demands that I should try and prognosticate about what is coming next. Well, I won't, because I don't know. History teaches us one certain thing, that critics, when they fish out the crystal ball and start trying to guess what the future will be, are almost invariably wrong. I don't think there's ever been such a rush towards insignificance in the name of the historical future as we've seen in the last 15 years. The famous radicalism of 60s and 70s art turns out to have been a kind of dumb show, a charade of toughness, a way of avoiding feeling. And I don't think we are ever again obliged to look at a plywood box or a row of bricks on the floor or a videotape of some twit from the University of Central Paranoia sticking pins in himself and think, this is the real thing. This is the necessary art of our time. This needs respect, because it isn't, and it doesn't, and nobody cares. The fact is that anyone except a child can make such things, because children have the kind of direct, sensuous, and complex relationship with the world around them that modernism, in its declining years, was trying to deny. That relationship is the lost paradise that art wants to give back to us, not as children, but as adults. It's also what the modern and the old have in common. Pollock with Turner, Matisse with Rubens, or Braque with Poussin. And the basic project of art is always to make the world whole and comprehensible, to restore it to us in all its glory and its occasional nastiness, not through argument, but through feeling. And then to close the gap between you and everything that is not you, and in this way to pass from feeling to meaning. It's not something that committees can do. It's not a task achieved by groups or by movements. It's done by individuals, each person mediating in some way between a sense of history and an experience of the world. This task is literally endless. And so although we don't have an avant-garde anymore, we're always going to have art.
You want to go over to the cafe? What? There's only, there's nobody in line at all. You want to wait for people to be in line?
Today, history is hard to keep in mind as we struggle to keep up with the barrage of information that assails us. We are now exposed to more images in a day than anyone in the 14th century would have known in a lifetime. We're surrounded by the fuzz and rumble of endless imagery, the white noise of everyday life, signals of information and desire that blur into each other, punctuated only by the bright highlights and sudden shouts of images that cut through the chaos. Most of it is garbage. Most of it needs excising, even if we're fearful that we might be missing something. We're probably not. We have to discard. We have to throw things away, cleanse the doors of our perception and work out what is worth looking at, what is worth remembering, what are the images that matter, what will we retain. 100 years ago, 75 years ago even, people used to talk about revolution as though it were the model of art. Art was supposed to be revolutionary. Art was going to produce, if you did it right, it was going to produce some kind of social change. I'm not at all sure that that was ever achieved, and if it was almost invisibly so. And today, I think we're left with a more modest but an equally difficult task for art to do, and that is to be beautiful, to manifest beauty. People need beauty. There's a hunger for it amid the clamour of visual imagery that surrounds us. And so we seek out zones of silence and contemplation, arenas for free thought and unregimented feeling. Museums have supplanted the church as places both of social congress and of civic pride. They are the new cathedrals, and despite the dubious quality of some of the stuff that actually goes in them, or even outside them, there's a growing hunger for the direct experience of art on a museum wall. A world away from the forest of media, work that is unique and obstinate as it is, shows that the hunger for new art is as strong as ever. The idea that aesthetic experience provides a transcendent understanding is at the very heart of art. It fulfills a deep human need. And despite the decadence, the confusion, and the brouhaha, the desire to experience it, live with it, and learn from it remains immortal.
The great thing about art, generally includes music or anything, is that the direction of art is always dictated by the artists. And in music it happens the same way. However much critics write, the other musicians decide who they're going to be influenced by, and the history and the story of the music will come through the artists.
That was David Bowie on Charlie Rose, and Robert Hughes from his series Shock of the New and the New Shock of the New. Everything I know from David Bowie, Charlie Rose, and Robert Hughes. Many of the people I know don't like to go to museums, but from the caves of Lascaux in southwestern France to the Louvre in Paris to MOMA in New York, they do offer us a look of the things we once thought were important. And in viewing art, we can see the visions of others, their culture, their aspirations, where they've been and where they'd hoped to go. And if they got there, we can see how they saw themselves and how they saw others, and guess as to the thoughts that passed through their minds. Robert Hughes said that the highest aspirations of modern art 75 years ago was to bring about revolution and social change, and that museums were places where people could seek out zones of silence for contemplation, free thought, and unregimented feeling, supplanting the church as places of social congress. And today it's the internet, Facebook, and Twitter, where images flow in an endless stream of diluted meaning that reflects, like a funhouse mirror, how we see ourselves and others, and it offers a digested version of history, purged of detail and meaning. But it is art, our art, spread thin on a grand scale, and as icons replace language and cultures coalesce, and social media feeds off our art, it brings about revolution and social change. And we stare at art, and like a looking glass mirror or a monkey in a cage, it stares back at us and asks the questions we ask of it.
You've been listening to the UnCommonCore Podcast with Thomas Howell. I'm Satoko Smith. Thank you for listening.